Happy Tuesday. It is Tuesday, July 7th, 2026. This is Hoystory on Air, Season 2, Episode 26. I think this one's going to be called I Still Hate Maine Nazis. Should have probably done this earlier this morning, should have done it late last night. We'll see. My main goal here is to get this out before he maybe drops out. If you missed it, Graham Platner, Politico exclusive, woman who dated Graham Platner says he sexually assaulted her. I don't know nowadays if this is for the algorithms online or whatnot that you say this as opposed to raped, because we'll get to it, but if you read the story, it sure reads like raped. This came out in Politico late yesterday afternoon. Woman who dated Maine U.S. Senate candidate Graham Platner says he forced her to have sex with him nearly 5 years ago, despite her repeated objections, an allegation Platner denies. The woman, a 41-year-old Maine resident named Jenny Rassicott, I'm guessing on the spelling, again, I apologize if I get it wrong, detailed the alleged incident to Politico in 3 interviews over the past 2 weeks. Politico also spoke with a man Rassicott dated and confided with in the years after the alleged incident, and reviewed documents including emails between Rassicott and her therapist and messages between Rassicott and an acquaintance whom she warned against getting involved with Platner years before he ran for office. Rassicott said she had an on and off relationship with Platner, who is now the Democratic Senate nominee in Maine, for more than 2 years before he entered her rural Maine home uninvited one night. That's breaking and entering, deeply intoxicated, and forced himself on her while she repeatedly told him to stop. She said she cut off contact with him after telling him the encounter was not consensual. I remember him grabbing my pelvis and being really forceful of me, she said. I remember the specific moment where I thought to myself, this is no longer my choice. This is rape. Platner denied the allegations. These allegations are troubling, serious, and false. Any accusation of non-consensual behavior is categorically untrue, he said in a statement. Rassicott previously described reckless and unsettling behavior by Platner to the New York Times, but says she didn't go public with a specific assault claim because she didn't want to be known as a rape victim. Kind of understandable there, but there's other problems. Rassicott said she tried to separate herself from Platner by telling him she couldn't be in that room anymore, after which he followed her to her bedroom and had sex with her against her will. That's rape. She said he also ejaculated inside of her, despite her telling him not to, as she was not using birth control at the time. This is a really classy guy. She went to clean herself up, she said, and when she returned, Platner had fallen asleep. She contemplated waking him up to kick him out, but worried he could hurt someone driving in the state he was in. The following morning, she said, Platner tried to put his arm around her and she pushed him away. She said she asked him whether he remembered what had happened the previous night. According to Rassicott, Platner said he didn't remember. So he says, so earlier we've got he denies this, but he was so falling down drunk he didn't remember what he had done. Yeah, that's the kind of person you want in the Senate. He should be in jail at this point. We're talking about him dropping out of the Senate race. She should put him in jail because, yes, Rassicott says she told him to leave and never contact her again. Here's where it starts to kick into deeper issues. And we'll talk about this. There's a couple things I want to talk about regarding this whole incident and where we are today with it. There's the political aspect and there's the journalistic aspect. And neither of them look really good in this situation. Rassicott said she later felt compelled to go public about her experience because the reaction to the Times story, this is a New York Times story that is the basis of my I Hate Maine Nazis podcast from last month. I'll put a link to it up there somewhere. I don't know where it'll be about now. You can click on that. That stands up well. I didn't rewatch it, but I went through the slide deck that I had. It stands up well. Reaction to the Times story was dominated by controversy about another woman, Lindsay Fifield, who alleged Platner mistreated her and faced attacks because of her ties to the Republican Party. Contacted by Politico, Fifield stood by the allegations she made to the Times and declined to comment further. Now, Rascott goes to Politico. She had talked to the New York Times before about this. Apparently she hadn't told them about the rape. They hadn't really pressed her about, okay, so he came over, because it was in the article, in the New York Times article, about how he came over uninvited and she, booted him out and didn't want to contact him or anything after that. That's kind of like, did he just come over and, crash on your couch? Or, it's, maybe you don't want to press. I don't know. But bad sign. So Brent Scher here on X says, major embarrassment for the New York Times. Russ could have talked to them. I'm so disappointed if she went to Politico and CNN, because the New York Times made Lindsay and her politics the story instead of Platner, and let his comms team shape the whole thing. Again, I encourage you to go back and watch my first thing, because this really was, and you may see it mentioned here in some of the screenshots of X posts and whatnot. This was what they call a kind of a catch and kill story. They got Lindsay Fifield to go on the record, assuring her that hers was only part of it, that they had 4 other people. Rascott was one of them, and there were apparently 3 others apart from that who had bad experiences, domestic violence type experiences with Graham Platner. And when they go to write the story, when they go to publish the story, they focus on Lindsay Fifield. And, she had, been in Republican politics, this, that, and the other thing, which made an excuse for all sorts of people to say, we don't believe her. She's a Republican. Rascott's a Democrat. She's a progressive. I'm not sure if I've got this in the slide deck, but she later on says, I was torn about doing this because I support his politics. This is, no. I don't care if you support his politics. I don't care. I mean, this should be disqualifying. The fact that we've got, we go through this thing of like, I can't attack somebody who has the same politics as me, even though they're a horrible person or something. So, I get the same feeling with people who are like, well, I can't celebrate July 4th because Trump is president. July 4th isn't about Trump. I know he tries to make it about himself. I get that. But I celebrated July 4th when the guy I didn't like was president. When Obama was president. I celebrated July 4th when Biden was president. President doesn't matter. Same sort of thing here. You shouldn't be, I should put my politics above, this political allegiance stuff should take first priority over a horrible person. Again, that New York Times article, this is what it looked like. We'll get back to this a little bit later. Bethany Mandel over on X says, the Times had this. They chose to bury it 30 paragraphs deep under a novel, not quite a novel, but they went into Lindsay Fifield's political background. Again, this was, let's give Democrats an excuse to ignore her claims. And there was plenty of stuff to back up her claims. Mary Catherine Ham. Again, this is what the New York Times reporters did. They leveraged Rascott's then off-the-record story to get Lindsay Fifield to go on the record, intimating to her that she'd be the least of the accusations in the article, and then hung her out to dry. Not only is Jenny great for speaking, but her move may discourage that kind of catch-and-kill reporting, because what they did was Streisand effect, the most devastating accusations. Streisand effect refers to, For those of you who don't know, Barbara Streisand wanted to sue a photographer who had taken a picture of her Malibu home from a helicopter. And like a dozen people had seen the photo because he'd done the entire coastline. And a dozen people had seen the photo. And once she filed suit against him, millions saw the photo. So this is the same sort of thing. It's like, oh, we're going to try and, we're going to do this story. We're going to try but we'll paint it in a way, we'll couch it in a way that partisans can dismiss it. And that was the goal. Emily Zanotti, who apparently is a friend of Lindsay Fifield, says, to me, the bigger New York Times sin was watching them tell Lindsay they had other women on the record and that her story would be one of several and not the lead, in order to, I guess, deceive her into going public, only to drop the other women's accounts and make the story a catch and kill. When we talked about me going to the New York Times to substantiate her story, Lindsay told me the Times had 5 women willing to talk. She was the only conservative. What happened to the other 3? Because we've only got 2 named. It's Rassicot and Fifield. The Times reporting is horrible. I'm going to get more into that a little bit later. I want to first kind of highlight that after the Fifield thing, Democrats, mission accomplished, right? Democrats didn't much care. Here's a Politico story from last month, right after the New York Times story came out. Says Ro Khanna is standing behind her, or behind Graham Platner. This is, and then here's a CNN screenshot. Democrats on the Platner allegations. Sheldon Whitehouse seems like a lot of nothing. We're still going to win Maine. It's up to the voters of Maine to decide. Ro Khanna, the behavior described in the New York Times story, was wrong and toxic. He's acknowledged that and sought redemption. We'll excuse all this stuff as long as the victim is a Republican. Ro Khanna, yesterday. I've been very clear that sexual assault or violence against women is the red line. These allegations are very serious and credible. Graham Platner should drop out of the race. I'm withdrawing my endorsement. That was yesterday. He did not do this when Lindsay Fifield in the New York Times article came out. Again, I believe in redemption then. Well, now that's a bridge too far. The Nazi tattoo. This guy has... I say he was vetted, now he wasn't vetted, and we knew about all this stuff, but it's okay because he's changed and he's a good person. No, he's a crap person. He's a horrible person. But now we're going to do the little 2-step dancing out. The proposed community note is fantastic. I hope it gets enough whatever to get approved. Because he's a liar and a hypocrite. They're all liars and hypocrites. Take a look at this little video.
And, frankly, Mr. Platner is a 4-tour combat veteran and someone whose conduct as he came home from war, many have questioned. I don't know him and don't know him at all well, but I'm going to give him a measure of grace and wait until I get a chance to hear more about the details of all these different allegations. In my view, the folks who we have here in the Senate and who we might have here in the Senate, we should hold a high standards.
He didn't call on Platner to back out then. This was shortly after the New York Times article. We'll extend him grace. This reminds me of there's a part in my book where I point out that the double standards fact checkers have with regard to contested claims, and that they are much more likely to give the benefit of the doubt to a Democrat than a Republican. And again, buy my book, I got case after case of this occurring. Similar sort of thing. We're going to give, our guy benefit of the doubt, but not the next guy. This one I love. This is Elizabeth Warren.
I am here because Washington needs fighters, and Graham Platner is the fighter we need. You bet. I said to myself, that's my kind of man. Because that is a man who not only has the values, but a man who believes in accountability. And we need a little accountability coming out of Washington right now. We need Graham Platner to come in and get rid of the corruption in Washington. Time for new laws.
Oh, that aged well.
I am here because Washington...
I apparently got 2 of those videos on. She is now called for him to end his campaign. Yeah. Although I will note, that's just something she released to the press. Her Twitter feed here, this will start scrolling here in a minute. Nothing here. She's got lots of videos. She's calling out lots of people. Nothing about getting Platner to leave. So, yeah, that's stand tall there. Now let's get to some commentators. This is John Favreau's. This was about 5 weeks before the New York Times article appeared. So that was in June. So April. This was early April. Graham Platner isn't just our best and only chance to beat Susan Collins. He's a good, decent man who's struggled and grown, is always trying to do better. I hope everyone with reservations takes a little time to get to know the real-life version of him, not what the algorithm throws in our faces. Clearly, that's what so many people in Maine have done from all different walks of life and political persuasions. Hack. This is Favreau today. He needs to drop out ASAP. These are as soon as possible. These are awful, credible allegations. He didn't say squat. Well, said on the pod after the also credible June New York Times story that his biggest problem is going forward to be credibility. Note, he didn't call him to drop out a month ago. When it was a Republican, who cares? It's now abundantly clear he hasn't been honest about his past and can't be trusted as a candidate for office. Things you knew 2 months ago. Again, check out my I Hate Maine Nazis Part 1, video, because they knew he'd lied about this stuff before. He'd lied about the Nazi tattoo and not knowing whether it was a Nazi tattoo. He lied about, sexting with other people while he was married. He lied about, these Reddit posts and whatnot. No, the guy's a liar. So saving grace, the party can find a replacement by the 27th as long as he drops out by the 13th, which I very much assume he will. I'm not sure I'd assume it. This one, I'm not. You can go online. You can find this. You can find the video. Sarah Longwell, another one of these where she was not. When the first allegations came out, it's like she wouldn't call on him to drop out. Now she does. She says, "I want to," but it's not because he's a horrible person. And that may have been what prompted this whole Politico thing, the cynical will say, because the polling coming out lately had Susan Collins ahead. And Susan Collins always, or at least recently, outperforms her polls. Last time she was running, she was down like 6-8 points in all the polls, and she won by 8. So they were hugely off. She outperformed them. And if she's winning in the polls now, and she's got a history of outperforming them, then she's probably way, way ahead. So, there are some cynical people who say, this came out that they're doing this because he's a loser. That all of this crap is having an effect on. Let's hit him harder and see if we can get him to drop out. So this Sarah Longwell, founder of the Bulwark, I want to win. She calls her to drop out because I want to win. I want Democrats to win the Senate and win the House. Platner's in an incredibly weak position to do that now. And I think it's a moral matter. When someone is accused of rape, that's game over. She says at the end, not quoted in the text here, but at the end of the video, violence and rape are my red lines. They weren't a month ago. They weren't when the victim was a Republican, was a conservative. They are now because she thinks he's going to lose. Yeah. Little Bunnies, she writes for Twitchy, has been posting some of these. Doing a great job. Mark Kelly, Senator for Arizona, came out. The allegations reported today are deeply disturbing. Character and accountability matter regardless of party. It's time for Graham Platner to drop out to allow someone else to be nominated and give Democrats the best chance to win this seat in November. As she points out, he didn't say squat a month ago. Lots of this going around. Very talented, very popular author, and a moral midget. Stephen King says, tell you the whole truth about everyone in the Senate and House of Reps. Those chambers will be dead empty. Jesus said, let him without sin cast the first stone. This was in response to the Platner stuff. He posted this right after the Platner stuff, and then this morning, not defending Graham Platner. If he committed rape, he should bow out. Just making a comparison. No. There are plenty of people, and I posted this on X at some point. There are plenty of people that, I'll get to that later. He's got supporters. He's got people who will support him no matter what. Does he have enough to win? He doesn't have enough to win. But there are people for which anyone or anything who could curtail Trump's powers, it's worth it. I mean, they'd vote for Hitler if Hitler somehow could curtail Trump's powers. Could help impeach him, help get him out of office. Back to the journalism. These are the two reporters who did the original New York Times story, Katie Gluick and Lisa Lehrer. They should not be trusted to cover a school board meeting. They should not be trusted to cover a water board meeting. They should not be trusted to cover the county fair. The reason, again, why Rassicot went to Politico was because she, too, got burned by these two women. Me Too. Again, this was a catch and kill. This was an attempt to get the story, the story was going to come out, but to get it out there in such a form and a fashion that it could be ignored, that it could be dismissed as just partisan politics, which is what it was. That's what happened. They were successful. Rassicot got her conscience finally got to her. She finally got to the point where I can't allow this to stand. Good for her. Better late than never. But let's not pretend that these two reporters did a good job. They were operating as PR for Democrats, PR for Graham Platner. It wasn't how can I be fair to Graham Platner as well. It was, I've got an award back behind me up on a shelf somewhere that I got in college. California Intercollegiate Press Association, I think is what it is, for a report I did on a woman who credibly accused a Cal Poly dean of all sorts of bad behavior. When I wrote that, one of the professors, who was kind of overseeing it, said, look, you've got, even if the other guy won't talk to you, even if the guy she's accusing and has this lawsuit against won't talk to you, you've got to give the best defense you can of him. It's just basic fairness. It's like, okay, this is the best of. This was not the best defense of Graham Platner. This was not being fair in doing that. This was public relations. This is not journalism. It was public relations. Fifield went on again on X today, explained some of this. She says, I actually understand why Democratic leaders didn't take our stories seriously when the Times reported them in June, but are taking them seriously now. It was by design. The line most shared from the piece was the claim that the Times could not corroborate my story despite talking to 2 of my friends. I gave them the contact information for 5 friends. They called the 2 who I clarified would not know about the abuse, would be able to affirm our relationship, timeline, events, etc. They simply did not call the other 3. This is the equivalent of malpractice. Whether it by a doctor or by a lawyer, by a journalist, this is malpractice. She gave you 5 names. You need to call them all. You may not use them all, but you need to call them all. You need to contact them all. You need to hear what all of them have to say. And these 2 hacks didn't. I also gave them the names of all my former roommates who remembered him stalking our row house, which was about 5 houses down from his, and waiting for me to return. I gave them screenshots of messages between these roommates and I discussing it. Stalking, kind of a big deal. Didn't even make it into the original article. Anything about him stalking her. I gave them the names of other men I dated who might have remembered him following us around the hill. This is talking Capitol Hill here, and showing up on my stoop after we walked home from dates to confront us. This is troubling behavior too. I gave them emails from my landlord urgently ending my lease and moving to an apartment across town and diary entries talking about it, all time marked. I told them that during premarital counseling I had spoken with my ex-fiancé about the abuse because I had to explain to him why I reacted with such terror anytime he lost his temper. They said, oh no, we don't need to bother him or her priest. Besides, I'd written about it in my diary in detail, they reassured her. Malpractice. She's giving you all this. You've got to go and use that stuff. You can't just use a little of it and then say, I can't corroborate the rest because you didn't bother to. She gave it all to you. As the weeks dragged on, I stopped trying to give them evidence because the amount I had already given them seemed to overwhelm them, and I thought it meant they clearly had more than enough to verify my every claim. My friends might not have known the details of the abuse, but they affirmed that yes, I had told them he was abusive long before he ran for Senate. Besides, they assured, my part in their reporting would be small. I thought my details would only serve to affirm Jenny and the other anonymous woman. Jenny and I, this is Rosico she's referring to, the one who came out in Politico yesterday. Having never met or spoken, both shared with these reporters terrifyingly similar details of intimate partner violence, coercive control, and cycles of abuse/love bombing. The 3rd unnamed woman in the story did as well. But tell me again how they could not corroborate. Those 2 reporters would probably lose their job or should lose their job. The problem is they won't. And they won't because the editors colluded with them. The New York Times, again, not acting as journalists here, acting as PR. Public relations. They are doing public relations. This was not journalism. This is not how it's done. I may not have, my career may have ended at the Union Tribune after 15 years in daily journalism, but I know what it looks like, and this ain't it. Then we get some of this stuff. This I love. Chris Cillizza, I looked him. He's been on CNN. He's been all over the place. Political journalist. I guess he got his start doing as an intern with George Will. Nice work if you can get it, I guess. I didn't have those opportunities because I'm a nobody. Says Platner's trying to negotiate who will replace him, suggests he has a deep misunderstanding of his current situation. You have zero leverage, dude. He has all the leverage. He has all the leverage, all of it, because he won the primary. He won the primary handily. His name is going on the ballot unless he drops out or he dies. I'm not suggesting that anyone would want to do him harm. I pointed out, I said, Platner, I replied, I quote tweeted him or quote, whatever you call him nowadays. Platner has all the leverage. The Democratic Party cannot force him out and replace him. He has to withdraw. This guy, Cillizza, was a major mainstream journalist. Think about the quality of the information and analysis that he provided in the past if this is what he's shoveling today. Now, he's followed up with that tweet saying that the Democrats will agree to anything to get him to leave the race and then do whatever they want once he's out, which is an excellent way of encouraging him to stay in. Say, oh, they may agree to that stuff, but once you're out, they can do whatever they want. They can put Janet Mills in, the governor of Maine, who is not a Nazi tattooed rapist, creep, communist scumbag. I can put her in. And once he withdraws, he ain't got squat to say about it. He can sit there, scream all he wants. He's got nothing to say about it. He has all the leverage. And he may stay in. They're talking about that. Ladies and gentlemen, Sonny Wright posts on X, Democrats demanded that Ralph Northam resign over his blackface scandal too. He said no, and Democrats got over it and went back to supporting him. If Platner stays, they'll get over little things like rape and him being a Nazi. They'll pour in money and demand people hold noses. They'll even do, he's seeking redemption. That's what's beautiful about America media stories. Yes, they will. They will. And I said this yesterday too. I said, if he stays in, this whole, there will be nobody on the Democratic side who will say, vote for Susan Collins. None of them will say that. If it's him versus Susan Collins, none of them will say, look, it's important that you vote for Susan Collins because this guy's bad news. He's a horrible person. He shouldn't be in the Senate. He stays in, he'll still get 25, 30% of the vote. Because there are lots of people who politics is their religion, and a vote for Platner is a vote against the Antichrist, who's Donald Trump. And so anything to get rid of Donald Trump, that's acceptable. And so he'll get 25, 30% of the vote in Maine if he stays in. I didn't pull this post off X, but Charles C.W. Cook over at National Review noted that Democrats have been saying, well, this is what, kind of the working class is. That's Graham Platner's working class. Well, that's why he's got the Nazi tattoo and all this other. It's like that's a slander and a slur on working class people in this country because they don't know them. They don't know what working class people are like because 99.99999% of them don't have Nazi tattoos. Don't assault women, don't rape women. This is, but that's what they think. It's not true. Eric Erickson had this. Democrats did not stumble into Graham Platner. They went looking for him. For a decade, the party has been losing men, young men, blue-collar men, veterans, the guys who fix your truck and pour your beer. So the smart set decided they needed a man who could win those men back. Not a policy fix, a vibe. And when they went hunting for the most aggressively masculine figure they could find in a swing state, they landed on a Marine with a Nazi death's head tattooed over his heart. That should tell you something about how the modern left thinks masculinity works. They didn't want a good man, they wanted a hard one, and they weren't careful about the difference. Nailed it. He's right. We'll see in the coming days if Platner drops out. He's got 6 days. He's got till the 13th to drop out. If he stays in, and I think the prediction marks, let's put it at 80 some odd percent, he's going to drop out. I'd almost take the other side of that bet. I'm tempted to say he stays in, because there's nothing much they can do about it. And he's got a hardcore base who will support him. And again, that 20 or 25%, maybe 30% who will vote for whoever it is to get Trump, I think there's some small percentage of that, maybe 10% of that, maybe 10% overall, maybe a third of that, 30% number, who will be offended at the anti-democratic process that lost them Graham Platner. Same sort of thing that kind of followed Kamala Harris when all of a sudden it's revealed that Biden's a walking corpse, and okay, so we got to go with Kamala. Hey, our nominee didn't win a single primary vote, but hey, there's a certain number of the very progressive left who will abandon whoever Democrats pick to replace Platner. Their best bet may be sticking with Platner. We'll see. Got 6 days. Certainly makes it interesting. I'll keep up on this. And again, I do shorts sometimes online, the little 3-minute or whatnot things. You can find them on my Substack under notes. You can find them on YouTube under shorts. You can find them on Facebook if you're not following me on Facebook. I seem to get a lot of traffic on Facebook, at least for the shorter stuff. This, not so much. People don't go to Facebook to watch what's going to be about a 45-minute podcast. It's almost over. I'm going to get done with this just in time to watch the second half of the last round of 16 game FIFA soccer. Last night, the U.S. game was atrocious. Wanted to crawl under my couch. Buy my book, ladies and gentlemen. I want to write another one. I do. I want to write another one. But this one kind of needs to sell for me to be able to do that. And tell your friends. Again, follow me on social media because I was on the Federalist Radio Hour. That's just audio. You won't see my pretty face. And we talked about the book for quite a while. But that just got posted today as well. I'll link that in the show notes below. I'm not going to put like a link dump like I have in the past because I'm not sure anybody's, anybody looks at it or anybody wants it. So I'm skipping it this time. It just saved me a few minutes on the front end of this. But again, buy my book, follow me on the socials, and tell your friends about me. Appreciate it. We'll see if this, again, we're halfway through. I've been doing this for like 8 months now, and need to get some more people following. And if you'd like to support me, buy a Substack subscription. It's $5 a month. I may do a user chat if I get enough people to do that. I don't know. If you got feedback, please feel free to leave a comment, send me an email, follow me on X, all the places. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see you next time.